Okay, ready to go.
All right. Joan and Freedom go out on a limb. Bizarre ideas for bizarre situations. Improving the patient experience and lowering associated healthcare costs by providing proper handoff when patients move between units or providers.
That is our small subject.
So hearts starve as well as bodies. Give us bread, but give us roses. Like, what the heck does that mean? If you can look at this image, it's an image from the Lawrence labor riots or the Bread and Roses strike of 1912. It started when workers' pay was cut, as well as several of their co-workers lost jobs. And these people were furious, and because they were expected to do the same amount of work with fewer resources, leaving their workplace unsafe. People died on those factory floors going about their workday, and textile workers subsequently said enough is enough. People died on the streets to protect their rights as well as the rights of others. Like, we as nurses, like, we find ourselves in the same position today. Why aren't we doing anything about it? Like, we're all angry, we're all upset. Like, we are in a position to make this change. And like the give us bread, but give us roses too is basically saying we want to be paid and compensated fairly, but we can't exist on bread alone. Like, we can't exist on jobs alone. Like, we need to be respected and listened to as people.
Right. And as the frontline worker with patients, I mean, we're the ones there on the ground constantly. You know, we have more patient contact than anyone else.
Yeah, like, we see it.
We see it.
You know, and then so like every one of us like has experienced a crummy or no handoff report, right? When we get a new patient. And on a good day, like, all it does is delay patient care while we spend hours playing catch up to find their information in a chart, if they even come with a chart. And on a bad day, we're not even going there, Joan, because we all know what happens there. It's like these examples that are up on this slide here. Yet, what do our managers do? They consistently hound us to give bedside report, involve the patient, because it makes their satisfaction scores increase when they leave the hospital. They feel involved, fewer errors, fewer errors. But we're not even given the resources to consistently have this handoff. Why don't we consistently involve patients in their own care? Why are the associated costs, or like, what are the associated costs with these delays in patient care? Like, what are those costs?
Yeah. In psych, I receive patients from EDs that don't communicate with me. I have had psych patients brought to me, one with pneumonia diagnosed as schizophrenia, clotting disorder diagnosed as schizophrenia, inflammatory breast cancer diagnosed as schizophrenia. Because if you have a history of a psychiatric illness, an emergency department with no time for complications is just going to see that old psych diagnosis, and they're not going to look at your medical condition. And you're going to wind up on my unit and not getting the care you need. Because we're not a medical unit, we're a psych unit, and communication is bad and patients are lost in this way. Just like Freedom, you know, I have the same experiences, just frustration with poor handoff. And, you know, it's not like I blame the nurses in the other facility. I mean, it's a matter of time and staffing.
Right, because we're also in the same situation that you are on our units.
Yeah, you're busy. I mean, you've got 10 seconds, you know, to evaluate a patient.
Right. Yeah. But like, how much does that 10 seconds really cost, right? Like, what is that 10 seconds? Like, you know, as I mentioned earlier, like, proper patient handoff improves overall patient satisfaction and patient outcomes. And not only in those, you know, darn HCAP scores that management keeps shoving down our throats, because, you know, patients feel valued. They feel empowered, fewer errors are made. I mean, like, study after study proves this. These handoffs might not even include the things like, or might include a lot of things that nurses consider pithy pieces of information, you know, such as what flavor of pudding Miss Jones prefers. But knowing that she likes the vanilla instead of that chocolate and giving it to her without prompting, honey, I heard you like this flavor the best. I call more people honey than maybe I should, but that improves her attitude. It makes people happy because it improves their perception of their hospital stay. You know, like, Miss Jones might hate that young resident who flits in and out of her room, but she sure as a snake slithers will recall those nurses who listened to her preferences, who
Right.
listened to her.
So Freedom and I started off with this quality improvement idea of improving handoff by actually listening to patients, spending more time with patients. But then I got to say that the more we read Creative Confidence, the more we thought, the more we were encouraged to dig down deeper. Why might a nursing handoff be inadequate? Why might it be misleading? Why might it be wrong? Do we need to think bigger? And Creative Confidence, the book that we read this semester is telling us, go bigger, go deeper.
Yeah, everything like was, saying it. And as much as we want to say a proper handoff makes our patients happier, it doesn't work with hospitals. It's not that simple. Like, why do we consistently, like these days though, they're also concerned with the dollar signs they see. And like we as nurses almost need to figure out a way to minimize the human aspect of things and present it back to the hospitals on a golden plate that says, look how much money you're going to save, Scrooge McDuck. I mean, that's how we have to reframe it, I think. What do you think?
I agree. I mean, I agree with, we've got the quote from Creative Confidence up here that one of the central principles of human-centered design is that you empathize with the end user. The end user is not us, it's the patient, right? Always. So how do we empathize with that end user? How do we do that?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can fix it. I mean, so there's some studies that show like healthcare like lacking, in digital savvy and like kind of falling behind. You were telling me earlier or reminding me about that conversation with the fetal heart monitors.
Yeah, we've known for 20 years, 2 decades at least, that fetal heart monitors are pretty much useless. They are inaccurate, they get in the way, and they don't tell us anything that we need to know. And yet, here we are still using them. We are not paying attention to the advances that people have made. We talk a lot about evidence-based practice, but we're not doing it. Why not?
Yeah, I
How do
mean,
we make change if we're not using, evidence-based practice?
using that data optimization that hospitals are so great at doing. Like it's showing how far behind we lack in making changes in healthcare,
Yes.
especially where patient satisfaction is concerned. Like as we're moving to a more fully computerized world, we need to play catch up. Like if we can optimize this data tracking down to like the rubber glove that we use in a patient's room, like to the specific amount of gloves we use, why can't we put all that data crunching to make the patient experience better? Like, what are we doing wrong?
Yes. So Creative Confidence tells us to learn to be a fly on the wall. And I love this fly. How do you be a fly on the wall? Well, you listen to your potential customers, in this case, patients. You listen to them sharing feedback and airing their grievances and asking questions, right? When you are listening to your patients, when you're being the fly on the wall, you're not interfering in what they're having to say. You're hearing it. You're not looking for evaluations. You're not thinking about cost. You are searching for pain points and latent needs among the people, right, that you are serving. So, fly on the wall.
I mean, like we're always told that hospitals have ever shrinking budgets. I mean, that's what we're told over and over again anyway. But like, what does the patient want? At this point, I'm not referring to Miss Jones' preference for vanilla pudding, though we never should forget about that kind of thing, like the human element. Like what are the overarching needs of people in general? Like people want to be treated as human.
Yes.
Like humans are not a commodity to be monetized. Like
Nope.
That's where we're at in healthcare right now.
Yeah. So as we were thinking bigger and trying to figure out how to be a fly on the wall, I thought of Nellie Bly. And fortunately, Freedom knows a lot about Nellie Bly. She was a crusading journalist, very bright, who went undercover at the Blackwell Asylum for Women in New York City. She spent 10 days there and was basically experienced what the women in that asylum experienced, and until her publisher had to petition New York court to release her. And then she wrote an amazing expose that sort of ripped through the world of mental health care and led to a lot of reform. So actions, big actions.
Yeah, she thought big.
Yes,
She
she
went
thought big.
She thought big and she went big.
Yeah, she had creative confidence.
Yeah,
So,
before anybody even knew what it was in 1887.
exactly. Not a fly, but a Bly. During her 10 days, what Nellie Bly found in that asylum was abuse. The food was so bad she couldn't eat it. Day one, she was offered a piece of moldy black bread with some rancid butter and a spider in it. Forced to I know, is that nice? Forced to take ice water baths. She saw patients beaten, patients beating each other, patients who were kept basically knocked out with huge doses of morphine and chloral hydrate. She found women who were in the asylum because they were inconvenient to their husbands and fathers. They were not mentally ill. They were just, had no rights and were put away. She found out exactly what it was like on the inside.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think that like some of it is because it's women's voices that weren't listened to, but we're not really even going into that.
Yeah.
Right now, she was just seeing a problem that needed to be changed. Like look at this image of women like eating their dinner or lunch or whatever at Blackwell Asylum.
Right.
They basically had their identity taken away. They weren't listened to as people. I mean, everything was considered hysteria, and so women were sent to an asylum. And like Blackwell Island today actually looks like that. I mean, I visited it. It's kind of.
I'm amazed that you've been there. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's like very ghostly. I mean, you can kind of feel like the horrors and abuses that happened.
Mhm.
I mean, even over 100 years later.
Yeah.
So like, be a fly on the wall or a fly on the ointment. Like,
Right.
what are we gonna do?
What are we going to do? Prior to Nellie Bly, writers like Charles Dickens had toured asylums. They'd gone and visited asylums, but when you tour something, you're a tourist. If you want to be a fly on the wall, you got to get inside. And her article led to a grand jury investigation of asylum conditions, and it really ushered in an age of hospital reform. Some of which hit Washington State. I used to work on the campus of the old Northern State Hospital, which was basically a reformed asylum for people where they were not abused, where they had classes and conditions were much better. So, it led to change because as creative confidence urges to do, she thought big, right?
She thought big, yeah. Like she played that detective like in Pursuit of Insight.
Right. And that's what we're supposed to do.
And like, so it's like interviewing customers, i.e. patients, like play Barbara Walters here, right? Like one of the things is like the best interviewers are asking open-ended questions, like consistently pressing for more, like not yes or no answers, like why? Can you tell me more about that? Even if I think I know the answer, that's not where you are. If I'm trying to find out what you need, I don't need to look at it from my point of view. I need to look at it from inside of your head. And that's why Barbara Walters was always so effective. That's why Nellie Bly was so effective. That's part of why those strikes were so effective, because they were looking at it from the point of view of the people who were oppressed and who had the problem.
Amen.
Which leads us to HCAPS. What does HCAPS do?
What does HCAPS do?
It's not asking for what was your experience. It's like on a scale of 1 to 5, rate it like this, yes or no. It's like all this like garbage stuff. What
happened?
Oh, I'm just no. It's just like HCAPS is garbage. We know.
Gotcha.
I mean, we know this. Like, I've seen numerous surveys that rated a person's hospital stay is like complete trash because the nurse didn't do anything about my cold grilled cheese sandwich.
Yes,
I mean,
HCAPS. Everyone, I don't know anybody who likes the HCAPS instrument, but it could be a much better instrument.
Management loves it.
Management loves it, but
they focus on the minutia. Like they don't see the big picture. Like, yeah, the patient got a soggy sandwich, but they rank the quality of the nursing care really high because the nurse spent some time with me. Like that's what they need to focus on, is like have the patient, like the comments, like there's the comments section that people talk about, or that they can write things like, they don't focus on the important stuff with HCAPs.
So is HCAPS enough? I don't know if you've ever seen Doc Vader, but he says no. And look at the data. The patient response rate was an average of 33.3% when HCAPS was first introduced, right? So basically 33 patients out of every 100 answered the survey. By 2017, it was down to 26.7%.
Now it's about 28. Is that what I'm?
Yeah, about 28 roughly. So that is, you've got out of 100 patients, 28 will answer your survey. And those 28 may well be motivated by a negative experience, not positive. Is this the best way to interview customers? Is this the best way to talk to your patients?
Right. And so, we get these things in the mail, right? Isn't it like after a hospital experience, you get something in the mail? And it's not even like a week later. I think when I had my hip surgery, I got it 6 weeks later. Like I forgot. I didn't remember what I had for breakfast this morning, much less what my hospital stay was like 6 weeks ago.
Yes.
Like how do we change that? Like how do we listen to the patient and give them an opportunity to explain themselves, like dig deeper, like go bigger.
Go bigger. We've
How do
gone from handoff to HCAPS. We've gone bigger. It's HCAPS is not
Yeah.
enough.
Like finding that sweet spot, right?
Finding the sweet spot. Creative confidence tells us we need to be looking as we think big at feasibility. Can I do it and is it possible? Viability, what is the worst that could happen? What is the best? And am I prepared for the consequences of what I do? And desirability, will this help? I mean, what do I hope to accomplish as I go big?
I mean, and the reality of it is the scope of what we thought we were going to do with this was start out with, like just improving the patient experience through like better handoff.
Yep.
Sure. Like that's something that everybody thinks they can do, but Joan and I are going to fix this. Like we might start that spark that turns into a dumpster fire, but we're not going to fix this problem. Like this has to be an action that is taken by nurses across the country.
Do we need to go Nellie Bly in our own nursing departments and have the patient experience? Do we need to go undercover and be a patient? I wonder.
I mean, I was.
Yeah.
And what I found interesting is because it was my hospital and they knew me, they treated me like royalty, but that's a little different.
Yeah.
But like
it has to be somewhere they don't know you.
Right. We should treat everybody like that.
Yeah.
So we're at the point of references. And I mean, I guess to wrap it up is there really are no right answers. There probably aren't even any real wrong answers for this. We just have to.
And I think if you haven't seen our point yet, our point is pretty simple, which is you start out with an idea, and if you have the creative confidence to explore it, you're going to find bigger pieces of information and bigger projects and bigger problems that need to be solved, and you can't solve them unless you yourself go big.
Yeah, don't start looking for an answer that you think you already know. Like go into it with an open mind.
Yes. And
that's really what we need to
do.
And
have the creative confidence to do a conversational PowerPoint, which is what we have just done.
Which is what we've just done. So thanks for the Joan and Freedom show, folks.
Yep.